Hey, I'm joined here today with Quentin Patterson. He's a director of online instruction for Top Speed Golf, a really brilliant golf instructor. And today we're going to go over a question that you get a lot. So we were talking about this earlier. What's a question you get that I think causes a lot of trouble for people?
Well, one question I get all the time is that people ask me, why is forward shaft lean even necessary? Why not just use a club with less loft? So what would you think about that?
Yeah, so if you think about, I'll go ahead and actually hit a couple shots here. So here I have an 8-iron. And with a typical 8-iron, you're probably looking somewhere around, mid to high 30s dynamic loft. So that basically, if my club shaft is straight up and down like this, most sets, every set's a little bit different, but I'd say around 37 degrees, something like that with an 8-iron is pretty typical. Now, when you lean this shaft forward, what pros are doing is they're taking about 30% of that loft off. So if I go from 37, let's make it pretty simple and just say around 24 degrees, 25 degrees of loft when they actually come down and hit this golf ball. So if this shaft is straight up and down, the normal loft on this face is 37 degrees, or if I can show it with this angle finder here, that's pretty neat. This will show kind of the angle of the face. That's 37 degrees. Pros are de-lofting that down closer to say 24 degrees when their club's coming into contact. So a lot of times players struggle with this if they're not familiar with the right way to get forward shaft lean. And as Q was mentioning there, a question is, well, why do I even need to mess around with that? Why not just hit my 7-iron or my 6-iron and not even have to worry about taking that loft off? Just use a club that already has less loft and make a swing. Well, there's several reasons for that. And the number one thing I see is speed. Now there's one thing that's very important that you do. Click that subscribe button. I have a ton of great videos coming out for you this year. I want to help you with your game, and the only way you're going to get notified when I release those new videos is if you're a subscriber. While you're at it, click that thumbs up button, hit the notifications bell, and post your comment below. I'd love to hear from you. So when you're not getting that forward shaft lean, what's happening is you're starting to cast here. So at the top of the downswing, this club is releasing early, and as I have this club kind of straight up and down like that, what I've done is I've kind of burnt up the energy early in the swing. Let me make a couple swings here. The first one, I'm gonna swing, pretty good. I would say my normal swing. I'm gonna try to really get some lag, get that forward shaft lean. Let's see what the stats are. Q can read them off on our Flight Scope X3. There we go, that was nice and solid. Hit that one pretty well, a little high. I don't know if my forward shaft lean is gonna be very good. What I get there for my dynamic loft?
All right, so dynamic loft was 31.2.
Okay, so I could have taken a little bit more off. So I took it from 37 or so down to 31. Probably could have been better, even better if I was down around 20, mid 20s, high 20s, somewhere around in there.
Club head speed was 93.2, carry distance 158,
okay,
and height was about 128 feet.
Okay, so what we're looking at there, a little bit of forward shaft lean, probably should have done a little bit more, not warmed up yet, so I got a little bit more flip than I would have liked to have had. And the height, so how high that shot was 128 feet. If I take loft off, it's gonna go a little bit lower. It carried 158 yards, which is pretty good for one of the first shots of the day with an 8-iron. That's pretty typical for me. And my loft again, 31 degrees, is that right?
Yeah, 31.2.
And 93 miles per hour club head speed. So if what I'm saying is correct, when I go ahead and make this full swing again, but I flip a little bit, I don't get as much forward shaft lean, I'm gonna burn up some of that speed. We're probably gonna see my club head speed less than 93 miles an hour. So let's go ahead and try the flip swing now, the bad swing. There we go, a lot higher. Felt very handsy. Felt like I had no control. The ball actually went into what would be the trees over on the right. So what were some of the stats on that one?
So club head speed went down to 90.1. Carry distance went way down, 133.9. Dynamic loft went way up, 39.2. I think it read the height wrong because it only went 114, but maybe because the speed, because there wasn't enough speed there, maybe it just didn't allow it to carry.
Yeah, so when I flipped there, I'm actually added 2 degrees, so my shaft was leaning back 2 degrees at contact. That took the loft up to 8 degrees more loft than my first shot. My speed, I lost 3 miles an hour club head speed. That's gonna lose some distance. And then now, because I have more loft, it's more of a glancing blow. It's not gonna go as far. I lost 20 yards and the ball kind of shot off to the right. I also lost control at the same time. So that kind of brings me up to, that's not just it. It's not just speed. There's some other factors in there. What do you think is the most important things for, that you're really just not gonna get if you just flip the club and use a lower lofted one?
Well, I think a big one is consistency. So your impact's gonna be a lot less stable if you don't have the force, which would be what you're putting into the handle with your hands, ahead of the mass. So the mass,
Take
which
that for
would
you.
be the club head. So if you just think about that in terms of just kind of a visual here, if I'm dragging this club head, my force, what I'm putting into the handle here is leading the mass. So that's just gonna follow right in line with my hand there. But if I go the opposite way and I try to push this, it's gonna be kind of squirrely. It's gonna wanna go all over the place. So that's what's going on when you are flipping the club like this at impact, is that handle is not in front of the mass, so it's just not gonna be as stable. Another one is basically you're gonna hit a lot of thin and chunk shots because of the way that you're coming into the ball. So when you flip, when you come in like this, you're coming in very level with the turf, or oftentimes you're hitting up on the golf ball. And when the ground's in the way, that's gonna be really, really difficult to make solid contact, because you're gonna end up hitting a lot of shots thin or tops even, or many times you're gonna hit chunks. So do you have any really good drills that you could use for forward shaft lean for folks out there working on this?
Let's jump right into it. So it's good to know we have to have this forward shaft lean, but how the heck do you do it? That's the real question. So let me grab a couple golf balls here, and I have a fantastic drill that I've seen work time and time again to help players get more of that lean at impact. Actually, I'll give you this flight scope again. When I hit a few of these shots, we'll see if I can stink it up a little bit less and actually get some forward shaft lean a little better than my first one. So here's the way I want you to do this drill. I have just a magnet that shows the angle of the face here. This will be easier to visualize. And when I come in and the shaft is straight up and down, or even angled back a couple degrees, you can see how the loft on that club is very high. What pros are doing, they're taking about 30% of that loft off, and they're getting that handle leaning forward. It transfers more energy, it's more stable, you have more swing speed, all kinds of good stuff. Now the best way I found to feel this is as you start your downswing, we're gonna go ahead and pause in the downswing. So go ahead and let your hips open up, let your body be opening up, your right heel's barely gonna start coming off the ground. And if we pause here at last parallel, or basically the last time that this club shaft is parallel to the ground, if my club face is straight up and down here, my heel toe is straight up and down, you're gonna see this angle finder pointing kind of out to the right or in front of me. What I wanna do is now rotate my forearms as much as I can to get that pointing down to the ground, or almost like having this club face point to the golf ball there. That's what the pros, you're seeing that all the time. When pros make a swing and this left wrist starts to get a little bit bowed. Here's how I want you to feel that. Have the club open, cupping my left wrist, face to the sky. And then I want you to flex the inside of your forearm here, contract those muscles to get that wrist to bow. That's what's called wrist flexion. That's this motion. And if you do that a few times, you can feel it on the inside of your forearm. Go ahead and do about 4 or 5 of those. Just open, closed, open, closed, just like you would in the downswing. Then with the right hand, do the exact opposite. That's gonna be knuckles back, knuckles to my elbow here. That's gonna be on the outside of the forearm. So if you pull your knuckles back, you can start to grab the outside of your forearm, you can feel those muscles flex there. So again, I'm gonna do 4 or 5 where I feel like it's open, and then I'm closing it down. The cool thing about this too is it's gonna help you promote a more square club face. You're gonna feel like it's gonna hit that nice draw, and the harder you swing, you're not gonna feel like you're gonna lose it out to the right. So the idea here, in a nutshell, I'm gonna pause at last parallel, open my hips, open my body just like a real swing, and I'm gonna rotate those forearms until my club face is feeling like, to me, it's pointing straight down at the ground. Even though it's not exactly happening, that's gonna be the sensation I got. So my first shot, my record here, if you wanna call it that, is, what was that, 31 degrees?
Yeah, 31.2, I believe, on the first one.
All right, so I gotta beat that dynamic loft. I definitely wanna get down in the 20s here. So I'm really gonna feel that rotating a few times, and then I'm gonna try to get that same sensation when I make a swing. Oh, I don't know, I hit it about as good as I can. It went a little high though. I'm skeptical if I got down in the 20s on that one.
All right, it did. You got just under 29.1 on that one. For dynamic loft.
What about the distance?
Distance went 161.3, and actually had a little less club head speed on that one. You're at 92.5 on that one.
So even though I swung 1 mile an hour less, still faster than the flip swing, I gained 5 more yards on it, and that's just because I took it off a couple degrees of forward shaft lean. Now, one last thing here that I'd recommend. If you're really struggling with this, one of the things that really helps with it too, when you're doing this drill, so I'm rotating my hands down, I want to feel like I'm low into the ground. I want to feel like I get this handle as low as I can. Think about when I flip, my handle is really far away from the golf ball. I'm standing up and flipping. As I get lower, or the butt end of my club gets lower to the ground, it has to get forward. So 1 inch lower on the butt end of the club actually is like 10 or 15 degrees, somewhere around 15 degrees of forward shaft lean. So you can see how as that handle gets lower, it gets farther in front. So again, on this one, I'm gonna go even more extreme. I'm gonna try to see if I can get down around, let's see if I can maybe get 27 or so degrees of dynamic loft. And I'm gonna get the same sensation, but I'm really gonna feel low coming through there. And let's see what we can do. There we go, that felt pretty good.
Looked lower for sure.
Nice draw, lower ball flight. And that one landed a couple yards farther than the one before.
Yep, so got down to 27 degrees on the dynamic loft.
Perfect.
There. Distance was about 160.8, so about the same as the last one,
Okay.
but definitely flighted a lot lower.
Yeah, so that felt very controllable for me. So now that I got right at where the tour players, the PGA Tour average is around 27, I hit 27. That's where you want to be for really consistent shots. I felt like I could just hit them all day long, nice and straight. Now, one thing that ties in with this that's very directly related is something I call the straight line release. So whenever you have this forward shaft lean, what's happening is if I grab up on the club, when's the first time this club shaft is going to split my forearms? Well, if I have forward lean at impact, that club shaft is going to split my forearms out in front of the golf ball. That's what I call the straight line release. That's when, if I was to put a golf ball out here in front of the one I'm going to hit, the first time my club splits my forearms is going to be that 45-degree angle in front. My hips, my shoulders, my arms, everything is releasing into that point. So having the visual of swinging in front of the golf ball and letting the golf ball get in the way makes things so much easier. Now I'm going to play a preview of one of my best straight line release videos. If you can pair up that straight line release video idea with what we did here today, man, that is the ultimate. That is the 1-2 punch that's going to give you this forward shaft lean a lot of consistency. So that preview is going to play here in a second. Just go ahead and click the card that pops up on your screen. Or if you don't see the card, click the link down below in the description. You'll get instant access to that video and you'll start puring those iron shots. A common misconception I see is that we want to create lag and we just want to hold that lag all the way on through contact and get as much lag as we can coming through contact. And that's simply not true. In the release section, we're going to talk about how to turn that lag into energy, how to turn that into speed so that you can hit it very far and do it, like we mentioned, without hardly any effort at all. And as we're coming through contact, we're going to fully release this angle as we're about 45 past contact. So if I draw, a 45-degree angle, I should be looking at both arms, nice and straight, the club splitting those arms, so that by releasing the club, by getting this angle to release as we're coming through contact, that's what's going to create the speed. Our hands are moving a very short distance, our club is moving a very long distance through contact, and it creates that whip-like effect.
Very different swings, hitting the exact same position. So first let's take a look at Dustin Johnson, releasing the club 45 past. And the reason we're going to see such different swings producing similar positions is that this is the real physics of how this has to happen. Here we're looking at Sergio Garcia. Again, we're going to see tons